The National Association of Black Journalists had Donald Trump on earlier today. He just gave a spectacular performance. I mean, just an all-time performance from Donald Trump, showcasing that he is not exactly the best at dealing with contentious interviews, especially in a relatively hostile environment.
I mean, it is not lost on us how divided we are as a country. And as you were coming today, we really got to see that we are divided along the lines of race, along the lines of gender. And there is this question of, in this moment where we are, why come here? What is your message today?
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And they're taking the employment away from black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. I have a feeling it's much more than that.
He has a feeling.
And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The first group of people, the black population, is affected most by that. And Kamala is allowing it to happen. She's the border czar. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border czar like this. She's never even essentially been. She said she was there once, but not the right part of the border. So she was a border czar. She's done a horrible job. These people are coming into our country, and they're taking black jobs and Hispanic jobs, and frankly, they're taking union jobs. Unions are being very badly affected by all of the millions of people that are pouring into our country. And one thing, as we discussed, many of these people are coming in from mental institutions, from prisons, from jails. They're gang members in other countries. Other countries are setting loose their prisoners. They're opening up their prisons and their mental institutions, and they're taking their bad people, drug dealers, gang members, and they're bringing them into the United States. And by the way, their crime rate is going down.
As you come here today, I want to talk about something that bursts, and this is the weight of the
Cover
inflation
Venezuela,
on this
please.
country
I
right
did
now.
yesterday, man. Shut up.
The nonprofit Money Management International recently released data from its mid-year analysis that we have found a 52% rise in people who are seeking counseling for being in credit debt. They're paying for food that is sky high on their credit cards, and now they can't pay that off. The credit counseling nonprofit MMI, as I said, is saying now that they've seen surges that they haven't seen since we were in a pandemic of people in financial trouble. Much of that falls on the shoulders of single moms, single black moms, when you look statistically. Yeah. How do you turn it around? What's your plan for the black community when it comes to money?
So, first of all, it's very hard to hear you for whatever reason because of the fact that they have bad equipment, because I guess, you know, this woman was unable to get the right equipment. But it's very hard for me to hear you, but I can hear every other word. It's very difficult, actually. But so I don't know if they can fix it or do something with it, but I'll do the best I can with it. The inflation is absolutely destroying our middle class, our working class, virtually every class. Inflation is a disaster in our country. Inflation is a country buster. It breaks every country. And we had, in my opinion, the worst inflation we've had. They say it's 58 years, but I think it's much more than that. It's been devastating. And if you just take a look at a lot of things they don't include, like interest rates. Interest rates went from 2.4% to 10%, and you can't get the money. People can't buy houses. They no longer have the American dream. Young people, young black people, they don't have the American dream anymore. They can't buy a house. They can't borrow the money because of the cost of the money. They can't buy it because of the cost of housing, because of the cost to build it, because of inflation. Inflation is a disaster, and it's destroying our country. And it's destroying the black community probably as much or more.
So what do you do?
Than any.
What's your plan?
You know what we have to do? We have to bring down the cost of energy, and that's going to bring down the cost of inflation. This was all started with a bad energy policy by Joe Biden. By the way, just if I might, I was running against a man named Biden. You probably saw that. And he was losing very badly in the polls. And then he had a rather bad debate. I would say it was a bad debate. I would say it was one of the worst debates in history. And his poll numbers crashed. And instead of saying, you know, let's keep going and maybe something happens the other way, they said, oh, we're going to replace him. Let's just replace him. That's like you're in a fight, a prize fighter's in a fight. He's not doing what you say, let's bring in another fighter. So our whole campaign was steered toward him, and now we have to steer it toward him. But ultimately it's the same because they have bad policy. They have policies of open borders, unbelievable open borders, horrible energy policies. They want to get rid of, as you say, gasoline in cars. They want to get rid of oil. They want to get rid of efficient heating.
Mr. President.
Environmentally, what they're doing is killing our country. They're absolutely destroying our country. But the inflation is the thing that's hurting the black worker, the black population, and every other population within our country. Inflation is the worst it's been, I think, in over 100 years. And they'll fact check it. They'll say it's only 58. Whatever it may be, they don't add all the numbers. They don't add the really bad numbers, and you can check that too. But inflation, Harris, is absolutely destroying this country and the people in our country. Yes,
Mr. President, can I ask you another question
Yes,
that is also impacting black Americans?
And that's very clear now. Good.
I'm sorry?
It's very clear. I hear you.
Okay. So Sonia Massey, someone from Illinois, an unarmed black woman, was shot the other day in her home by a deputy sheriff. The deputy has since been charged with murder. You've said police would get immunity from prosecution if you win. Why should someone like that officer have immunity, in your opinion?
Immunity?
Immunity.
I don't know the exact case, but I saw something, and it didn't look good to me. It didn't look good to me. Are you talking with the water, right?
Yeah, well, police unions are not backing this person either.
Okay.
But again, why would...
Are they going to be charging the officer? I guess they're charging the officer.
He's like, because I'm racist.
Well, he might not.
That's why I defended it.
It depends on what happens. I'm talking about people that are much different cases than that. We need people to protect ourselves. And by the way, in Chicago, as an example, a few weeks ago,
talk about black on black crime, dude. Go ahead.
117 shootings and 17 deaths. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. We need to have our police officers have the respect and dignity back. In this particular case, I saw something that didn't look good to me.
This is really good.
I didn't like it at all.
So, can you get a little more specific back to...
Yeah, the solution to Chicago's gun violence is more policing. That's
for the most part. People
not
are
even
protected by their unions, by their police.
Not even more policing, but giving police more respect and dignity.
Or if a group of people would feel that somebody was being unfairly prosecuted because the person did a good job maybe with crime, or made a mistake, an innocent mistake. There's a big difference between being a bad person and
right now, what you need to understand here, right now, and I'm going to give you commentary, don't yell at me. Trump is trying to message to black men, okay? He made some gains with black men, okay? He's trying to lean into that. The campaign is trying to like make more gains in that, on that front, and that's why they're ramping up misogyny. It's just for men in general. It's across the board. It's the same. It's the same gains that they've made in men across the board, specifically non-college educated men. Problem here is he also has a very active white supremacist base. So he needs to dance between this line where he's like,
especially when it comes to prosecutors that are prosecuting you.
He is trying to dance between this line where he's like, kind of racist enough, but not so racist that like he can still bring up some.
I've been prosecuted.
He can still bring over some black men to his side in terms of voting for him.
That was the most difficult case, and I just won it. Now, Biden has a similar case, except much worse. I was protected under the Presidential Records Act. Biden wasn't, because he wasn't president at the time, and he had 50 years' worth of documents, and they ruled that he was incompetent, and therefore he shouldn't stand trial. And I said, isn't that something? He's incompetent and he can't stand trial, and yet He can be president. Isn't that nice?
Mr. President,
but they released him on the basis that he was incompetent. They said he had no memory, and he was a nice old guy, but he had no memory, and therefore we're not going to prosecute him. I won the case, and it got very little publicity. I didn't notice ABC doing any publicity on it, George.
We covered you extensively, sir. I'd love to move over on to different topics.
I didn't notice you do any publicity on it at all. I won the case, the biggest case. This is an attack on a political opponent. I have another one where I have a hostile judge.
We have you for a limited time, sir. I'd love to move on to different topics.
Excuse you, you're the one that held me up for 35 minutes, just so you understand.
If we can move on now to the state of the race, sir, I want to get back to the campaign. Senator J.D. Vance is your running mate. He's had a lot of controversy lately, and I want to read you a few things that he has said in the past. He said the Democrats running the country are a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. He's not talking here about how great it is to be a parent. He's attacking what he says are the choices people are making to not have children. Did you know that he had these views about people who do not have children before?
Ooh, that's a great way to ask that question. Oh my God, what a great way to ask that question.
He is very family oriented, and he thinks family is a great thing.
Of course, he's not going to answer it, but it's a great framing on that.
I know people with families. I know people with great families. I know people with very troubled families, and I also know people with no families. They didn't meet the right person. Things happen. You go through life, you don't meet the right person.
But he's not just talking about families here. He also says that people that don't have children should get less votes than those that do.
I'm just speaking for myself.
Is that your campaign
I think
position?
I'm speaking for him too. He strongly believes in family. But I know people with great families. I know people with not great families that don't have a family. And the people without
bad
the family
families
are far better. They're superior in many cases, okay? He's not saying they're not. What he's saying is that he thinks the family experience is a very important thing. It's a very good thing. But that doesn't mean that if you grow up and you grow older and you don't meet somebody that would be wonderful to meet and would have been good, that that's a bad thing. He's not saying that. My interpretation, you'll have to ask him, actually, but my interpretation is he's strongly family-oriented, but that doesn't mean if you don't have a family, there's something wrong with it.
Just one last point, and then we'll move on. Just one of the bedrock principles of American life is one person, one vote. Senator J.D. Vance has suggested that someone who has children should have more votes than a person who does not have children. I just want to be clear here. Is that the position of your campaign?
Well, no, but it's not something I have ever heard before. I can tell you this. Right now you have illegal aliens coming into our country, many from prisons and many from mental institutions, and they want to give them votes. I don't think they should have votes. They came into our country illegally, and they're taking the vote away from all of the people in this room that have been here a long time, that have worked hard, that in many cases, and you'll see this happening, if I'm not elected, you're going to see it happening. If I am, you're not going to have any problem. But you're going to see it happening a long time. You're going to see the people in this room and people outside of this room are going to be losing their jobs, the people that have come into this country illegally.
Mr. President, can we stay with just kind of the state of the race right now? Because I felt like that vice president question, candidate question was right in there with that. So let's talk about J.D. Vance for a little bit. He's had some stumbles out of the gate. I don't know if you're hearing what we hear as reporters, but it's been a tough couple of weeks for him. Why did you choose J.D. Vance?
Why
did you choose him? And I'm having a hard time hearing, too. I know everybody out there can, but it's hard to hear.
I'll tell you why. I chose him because he's a very strong believer in work and the working man and woman, and especially the working man and woman who have been treated very unfairly, because you have many of them in this room. But you have many of those people, they were treated very unfairly. They worked very hard and they were treated unfairly. He wrote the book that became a bestseller. The movie became a smash hit. He's a very smart guy without the benefit of having a family that has contacts, like a father that was well connected. He got into Yale Law School. He graduated in 2 years from Ohio State, summa cum laude. I mean, you take a look at, his career has been an amazing career. He started off at a level with a difficult family situation, very difficult, with the mother and the father and everything else. He ends up going to Yale Law School and was one of the top students, became the head of the Law Journal. I mean, it's an amazing thing. He's a 4-year, he was in the military with great distinction for 4 years, got out, went into business, became successful in business, very successful in business, actually, did public offerings and other things. And I have to believe in that. I mean, he's somebody that was born in a rough situation. Most of the people know that situation because it was very well documented in his book. And I have a lot of respect for somebody that can get into Yale and become one of the best students in Yale, that meets a young woman at Yale who was also outstanding, and they get married, they have a beautiful family, but he had he's made himself an amazing life. He then goes to Ohio, lives in Ohio, and he had my endorsement. That helped. But he wins the Senate. He becomes a United States Senator. So he's a United States Senator. And so, Harris, like I respect you for your success, I respect people for their success.
The reason I asked the question is because the last time you and I sat and talked was the day that you were shot. We'd been together for much of that day. You left to go to Butler, Pennsylvania, and we didn't know what was next.
Yeah.
And 2 days after that...
I cannot understand. Your microphone
I know,
is so
it is
muffled.
really hard for me to
it's
understand
just,
you, too.
I can understand you perfectly.
Because she's closer.
I can understand you.
I'm happy to hear that, sir.
But I can't
really happy to hear
understand.
that.
Whoa.
Harris,
I have a few more questions.
because of the distance, and the mics are really in lousy shape, but I cannot understand
Are you asking a question?
what you're saying.
So what I wanted to say was the last time we spoke, you said some words that were prophetic because I asked you who you wanted to choose for vice president.
Yeah.
And you said normally it really wouldn't matter what they would bring. You know, you choose somebody that you think has a future, that sort of thing. But you said these words 3.5 hours before an attempted assassination on your life. You told me that bad things happen, Harris, and that's why this decision is important this time. Bad things happen. You said it twice. When you look at J.D. Vance, is he ready on day one?
He's just so horrible.
Does he
Can't
what?
even be a
Ready
decent
on
human
day
being
one.
for 1 second.
If
It's
he
so
has to.
sad, man.
I've always had
Bro,
great
so
respect
many
for
Americans
him.
support this demon. I hate it. Brother, you need to
And for the other
understand.
candidates too. But I will say this.
There's a lot of pieces
think
of shit
this
out
is
there.
well
And also, there's a
documented.
lot of people who are nice but
Historically,
very
the
angry.
Vice president, in terms of the election, does not have any impact. I mean, virtually no impact.
There's just a
You
lot
have
of
2 or
bad
3
people out
days
there,
where
man.
There's
That's
a lot
it.
of commotion as to who, like you're having it on the Democrat side, who it's going to be. And then that dies down, and it's all about the presidential pick. Virtually never has it mattered. Maybe Lyndon Johnson mattered for different reasons of what we're talking about, not for vote reasons, but for political reasons, other political reasons. But historically, the choice of a vice president makes no difference. You're voting for the president, and you can have a vice president who's outstanding in every way, and I think J.D. is. I think that all of them would have been. But you're not voting that way. You're voting for the president. You're voting for me. If you like me, I'm going to win. If you don't like me, I'm not going to win.
I'm going to get my J.D. Vance question in.
J.D. Vance?
I'm going to get my J.D. Vance question in. To your point and to Rachel's point, he, has a lot of opinions about childless women like myself or divorced people like yourself. Do you think, well, I mean, my point
but at
is
least
here.
it was said in a friendly manner.
My point is, do you think the Republican Party is getting a little bit too judgy about people's lives when you think about abortion or when you think about what J.D. Vance is saying?
I don't think, look, I think that the Democrat Party is really the one that has the problem. I think they're radical on abortion because they're allowing abortion in the 9th month. They're allowing the
But
death.
I think it's
they're
about
allowing
freedom,
the death
right?
of a baby after the baby is born, based on
Sir,
the
that
governor
is
of
illegal
Virginia.
in every state in the
That's
country.
Based on the governor of Virginia,
Executing a
they're
baby in
allowing the
every
death
state
of
in
the
the country
baby
is illegal.
after it's born.
It's a
They're allowing
crime.
abortions in the 8th and 9th month.
Well,
of
Democrats
pregnancy.
have denied
I think they're right.
that.
And I think the Republican Party is actually much less. I think I've made them much less radical, perhaps. But the Republican Party, what we're doing is bringing it back to the states where everybody wanted it. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted abortion brought back. They didn't want Roe v. Wade in the federal government. They wanted it. Everybody
But the
wanted
majority
it
of
back.
Americans oppose
Excuse
Roe
me.
v. Wade being
They
overturned.
They
Multiple
don't know
polls have
about
showed that,
this.
sir.
Right now, they're voting. It brought it
What?
back to the states. Now, I happen to believe in the 3 exceptions. Ronald Reagan
Most
believed
Americans don't
with
know about
rape,
it.
Incest, life of the mother. I do. I think most people do. I think most Republicans do also. But if you take a look, right now they're doing, it's an amazing thing, out of the federal government, it's in states, and people are voting. And I will say, Ohio is, let's call it a more liberal version, has been approved. Kansas, the same thing, a little bit surprising to a lot of people. But the people are now voting. And it's taking this issue that's been going on for 52 years and has torn our
Bro, it was literally
apart,
it was literally set. It was not torn apart. This is just an abject lie.
Many
Again,
states have already
75% of the country consistently polled on this issue said Roe v. Wade is good. It was considered to be a super precedent.
You have to follow your
okay?
heart. I happen to believe in the 3 exceptions.
The
Most people
fucking
believe in the 3
Supreme Court
exceptions. Most
justices he
Republicans
put on there
believe in the
lied.
exceptions. But they don't
To
want to
get the
see an
job.
abortion in the 9th month or the 8th month. Almost everybody agrees to that. And they certainly don't want to see, in the
Dude,
case
every
of the
part
governor of
of the Trump rhetoric is just built on lies. It makes me so fucking mad when I listen to him over an extended period of time. I forgot how much he fucking pissed me off. Like, immigrants are rapists, drug dealers, whatever, lie, okay? The exact opposite is the truth, okay? The 90+% of drugs being shipped over the fucking border are apprehended at regular points of entry by American citizens. American citizens are the ones who are trafficking the drugs into the country, okay? So that's just an immediate lie. Undocumented migrants are responsible for less crime than documented U.S. citizens, okay? Natural-born U.S. citizens. So that's another lie. The notion that, like, Americans were actually upset about Roe v. Wade, also a lie. No, I'm not going to give you an analysis after he finishes. I have to do it in real time, okay? Because I don't want to forget.
The world history, the greatest leaders, some of the greatest leaders in the world were in their 80s.
But here's the question. Would you consider stepping down if you felt that your health was declining? Or would you?
Oh, absolutely.
And who would make,
I think I'd know.
How would you make that decision?
I think I'd know. Look, if I came onto a stage like this and I got treated so rudely as this woman treated me.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm fine with it because she was very rude, sir. Very rude. That was a nasty, that wasn't a question. She
Sir,
didn't ask me a question. She gave a statement. That wasn't a question.
This is classic Trump, though.
You said you would. You would
Oh,
make that
absolutely.
decision
If
to
I
step
thought
down.
that I was failing in some way, I want people to be sharp. I'll go a step further. I want anybody running for president to take an aptitude test, to take a cognitive test. I think it's a great idea. And I took 2 of them and I aced them.
Well,
I took 2 of them. But let me ask.
Yeah.
I would like to have people running for president, and I don't mean because they're 75 or 85. I think anybody running, I'd like to do it. People say it's not constitutional. I would like to have something passed where you can do it. I think we should know. I mean, I've watched what's happened in the last couple of years under this gentleman, and our country is a mess. We have inflation. We have the millions of people falling in. We have Afghanistan, which was the worst, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. What he has done to our country, and her too, what they've done to our country, she has been a horrible vice president. She's considered the worst vice president in the history of our country.
Mr.
Don't mean to
President,
interrupt you, but would you consider taking the cognitive test?
Mr. President,
I would love to
and
do
make
it.
it public?
Well, I've already taken 2 of them, but I'll do it again.
Mr. President, how do you intend to?
I suggested, Harris, that let's take one. I said, Joe and I will go and take a cognitive test. Now, I'd do it with her, too. I would do it with her also. You know what? She failed her law exam. She didn't pass her law exam, so maybe she wouldn't pass the cognitive test.
Mr. President,
Are you saying she wouldn't pass? Just to be clear,
I'm just giving you the facts.
to be clear, you don't think Harris would
how
pass
do
the
you
cognitive
intend,
test?
She
and
didn't
look,
pass her bar exam, and she didn't think she would pass it, and she didn't think she was going to have to pass it. And I don't know what happened. Maybe she passed it.
She did pass it.
There's a man over here. I
She did, in
think
fact,
he
pass
must
it.
work for
Mr.
her.
President, I would love to ask you about January 6th. You've called yourself the candidate of law and order.
Yeah.
When Time Magazine asked you if you would consider pardoning all the rioters, you said, yes, absolutely.
Sure.
You called them patriots. 140 police officers were assaulted that day. Their injuries included broken bones, at least 1 officer lost an eye, 1 had 2 cracked ribs, 2 smashed spinal discs, another had a stroke. Were the people who assaulted those 140 officers, including those I just mentioned, patriots who deserve pardons?
Well, let me bring it back to modern day. Like about 5 days ago, we had an attack on the Capitol. Horrible attack on the Capitol.
What?
You saw the people that were protesting and
What?
spraying these incredible monuments, bells, lions, all these magnificent limestone.
He's saying that the Benjamin Netanyahu protests are worse than
spray
January
paint
6th.
That will never actually come off, especially in the limestone. It will never. I'm a builder. I know about
This is why
stuff.
Democrats are
It'll
so
never, you'll see
stupid
it
on
in
the
100
Israel
years
issue,
from now.
okay?
They viciously attacked our government. They fought with police. They fought with them much more openly than I saw on January 6th. What's going to happen to those people? What's going to happen to the people in Portland that destroyed that city?
But sir, my question is on those.
What's going to happen to
my
the
question
people
is
that
on
tried
those
to burn
rioters
down?
who assaulted
Excuse me.
officers.
You have to
would
ask,
you pardon
what's
those
going to
people?
happen? Oh, absolutely, I would.
You
If
would
they're
pardon
innocent,
those-
If they're innocent, I would pardon them.
They've been convicted.
And by the way, the Supreme Court just well, they were convicted by a very tough system. They were. How come the people that tried to burn down Minneapolis? How come the people that took over?
There were tens of thousands of arrests and convictions in the BLM protests.
But sir,
people
we're
that-
talking about
how
people
come
that
the
were
people-
seen
no,
beating
We're
officers
talking
with
about federal
flagpoles,
buildings.
dragging them down the stairs. They're on
They
video.
try-
Have you seen that
Really?
video,
Oh,
sir?
really? Well, they
you would
shot-
pardon those. You would pardon those rioters?
They shot a young lady in the face who was protesting. They shot her in the face. You know, nobody died that day. You do know that. But people died in Seattle. Nobody died, but people died in
140
Minneapolis.
officers
You know,
were
people died in
assaulted that
Minneapolis.
day.
And nothing happens, and nobody ever talks, and nothing happens to those people. But you went after the J6 people with a vengeance. And I'll tell you what about the cops that were, and I'm all for the police, as you know, but what about the police that are ushering everybody into the Capitol? Go in, go in, go in. What about that? Look,
What?
No one was
nothing is perfect in life, but you have people from Minneapolis, you have people just from 5 days ago in Washington, D.C. They were having fistfights and fighting with the police.
I love
They
Donald
were
Trump's
spraying and
idea
destroying- they
that
were
like anyone who
desecrating
opposes me
our
needs the most
monuments in
violent
Washington,
apprehension
D.C.
from the law.
5 days ago.
I'm law and
nothing
order for
happened
like
to
black
them.
people, brown
And you
people,
have to- you can't have two
Palestinians,
systems of
and I
justice.
only
That's
want
why they
leniency
went
for
after
my
me as a
fans.
political opponent,
Like he
because they
very
felt they
openly
couldn't
is
win
like,
without doing that.
it's a brutal
And we're
system,
gonna win our
very
cases, and
brutal
we're gonna be
towards my
vindicated, but I have to
fans,
spend a
but
lot of
also
time on
we
that
have to
and money.
kill
That's what
these
they want.
fucking
After the
pro-Palestinian
election, they won't-
protesters.
although in
It
my
is
case, I
so
think they probably will, because
flagrant.
the hatred
It's
is
so
pretty deep.
obvious
But
what
I'll
he's
tell you,
saying. It's
they
just
went
like,
after me as a
yeah,
political
dog,
opponent.
if you're like a
That's
right-wing
never happened
Republican
in
and a
our
white
country
guy,
before, and it
you
sets a
shouldn't go to
terrible,
jail.
terrible precedent.
Okay? If you're
What do you do on
protesting
day
police
one if
brutality,
you-
if you're
what's your
protesting
first
like
thing?
Israel's
What do I
genocide,
do?
you should be
I
killed.
close the border. And I do two things, because I can do a lot of things simultaneously. I close the border. We don't want people coming in. We want people to come in, Harris, but they have to be vetted. They have to be checked. They have to come in legally. We want
Legal,
people. I want
yeah.
people to come into our country, but they have to be vetted. They have to be checked. So when you say, what do? That, and I drill, baby, drill. I bring energy way down. I bring interest rates down. I bring inflation way down, so people can buy bacon again, so people can buy
He's a
ham
fascist
sandwich
and a
again,
leftist.
so that
Yeah.
people can go to a restaurant and afford it. Because right now, people can't buy food. Your grocery bills are up 40, 50, 60%, right? She's agreeing to me. Oh, she's agreeing. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I think we are.
But it's true. Your grocery bills are up. And then they're mandating that you buy an all-electric car.
Dude, he
You know,
is so
Elon
bad
Musk endorsed me.
at
and he's
this.
a
He is
friend of
not
mine.
good
He's
at
a
this.
good guy. He's a smart guy. But I'm against everybody having an electric car, okay? I'm very much against that. You have to be able to, if you want a hybrid or if you want a gasoline-propelled car. But, you know, we have more liquid gold, gasoline,
I mean,
oil
he's very
under our
entertaining,
feet
though.
than any other country. More than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, more than any other country. I want to use it. I want to use what we have. I want to bring down prices, bring down costs, and I also have to stop the invasion.
Listen.
And
The
remember,
thing
they're
is,
taking
this is
your jobs. These
entertaining
people
for
coming
me,
in,
at least. I don't know if you guys find it entertaining because he's getting fucking grilled. But also, one aspect of this is like the reason why he made this appearance is something that you have to ask. Oh, let's see the last question, and I'll get to the.
Well, thank you very much.
They've been telling us.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, very much. Great
Thank you,
honor.
Mr. President.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
NABJ will email about details regarding the conversation with Vice President Kamala.
So here's one thing that I have to stress here, okay? Donald Trump went to this specifically because the Republican Party currently thinks that there's an avenue for them to pick some black male votes from the Democratic ticket. Okay? This was a calculation that they were relying on to a certain degree when they were matched up against Joseph Robinette Biden. Now, having said that, it's just the same exact, I mean, it's like significantly less percentages, significantly smaller numbers than like the non-college educated white vote, okay? But it's from the main constituency of the Democratic Party that reliably votes Democrat historically, so it obviously has a larger impact. So that's his goal here. That's why he went. That's why he went. If you're wondering, like, why did he go to the National Association of Black Journalists? Like, why did he do that? That's the reason, right? The problem, however, is that that's not exactly a great political calculation for him, because the major base of support for the Trump party, for the Republican Party in general, historically, is racists. Like, we can play a song and dance around it and be like, what do you mean Republicans are racist? Democrats are the real racists? Like, come on. It's just, that's what it is. It's racist vitriol that works really fucking well for the most active parts of the Republican Party's base. That's why they cynically will defend Confederate soldiers and Confederate generals and all this shit, right? So the issue here is that, like, he can't appear too fucking woke. Like, most racist people still vote for him. And this looks good for racist people because he's like cooking and being really disrespectful and rude to black women, right? But the goal in this appearance is not to actually galvanize the base of support that was already going to fucking vote for him. Because if you're racist, of course you're going to vote for him. You know what I mean? Like, of course, you're already there. You're already in the pocket. You're already in the fucking 30% Trump cult, right? And the goal here is to basically be able to present himself in a somewhat presentable way to black men, okay? That's what his goal is here. Now, I'm not saying that this is a successful strategy. I'm not even saying, like, I'm not one of those people that's claiming, like, oh, black men are voting in droves for the Republican Party. No, it's just the same exact shit that has been happening with men in general, okay? Like, there is a massive gender gap between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party in terms of male voters, okay? That's just the reality. They respond to machismo, but the Republicans don't understand that if you fucking hit it too hard, if you hit this line too hard and in a weird way, in a gross way, in the same way that JD Vance has been, then you're actually going to come across like really, you're just going to come across as somewhat toxic, right? Trump does a much better job at playing this tightrope than JD Vance does, than, you know, Tim Pool does, than all the Republican commentators do in general. But what he did today, I think, was unsuccessful in terms of like bringing a larger a black male voter constituency to the Republican Party. That was the goal, and he failed on that goal. It'll look great for Fox News. He'll be like, he's a big fighter. Look at him. He's just like absolutely eviscerating these sassy women. You know what I mean? Like, but ultimately, it's also kind of a setup, because like the way he operates around black women who are, you know, being contentious is kind of a matchup for how the public will read how he operates towards Kamala Harris, who's also a black woman who's going to be contentious towards him, right? So ultimately, I think his reaction to the way that the way that they were grilling him is not great. Like, he's not coming across smooth, he's not coming across confident, and he's coming across as desperate, flailing, and very aggressive. Now, that works really well, like I said, with non-college educated men in general. He's owning a woman, right? He's owning a black woman, even better. But will that look good? Will that look good to the base of support that he's trying to capture there? I don't think so. That's it. Like, it's not, I think that people that see the way he behaves and see the way he responds, especially I would say, black men that see the way he behaves and the way he responds will be left with a sour taste in their mouths, even if they were like kind of teetering on the edge of potential Trump support due to like some of the factors that the rest of the non-college educated male vote goes for Trump. Okay? That's what I think. I think that he comes across as like being super fucking aggro. I mean, there were moments where he just openly was just like, yeah, no, we should institute leniency for my supporters during January 6th. But yeah, if you were doing BLM riots, BLM protests, then fuck you. You should be killed. Like, it's just like, that's so obvious. That's such an obvious fucking double standard that you're demonstrating, where you're like, the criminal justice system is so aggressive, you know, so goddamn aggressive towards January 6ers who are patriots, but also simultaneously not aggressive enough at the top of the hour when there's a 3-minute ad break. And the ad break avoiders that, I mean, the fact that he did that in front of a room of journalists and they were already souring on him and praising Harris for the last 2 weeks, he has to change the media narrative to break the cycle. He just made it worse. I agree. I wish that there was like, at least on the aesthetic front, if there was like at least one black male journalist on there who was also cooking him, or at least like a centrist, it would look even worse for him overall. Because his goal here is literally to captivate or to capture any kind of black male voters that he can potentially go after, but it's a fucking dud anyway. That, I think, was the old method against Joe Biden. That's not going to work against Kamala Harris, especially when, the entire Republican Party is just running the DEI narrative, which is something that every black person, every brown person, every person that's not white has heard a million times over in their lives. So it's just an immediate reminder of what that is. It's like affirmative action, CRT, DEI, woke. These are all substitutes for basically saying you don't deserve your position because a white person deserves your position. You actually were only appointed to your position due to your skin color. It's just a reminder of that white supremacist narrative. And if he doesn't fucking, if he doesn't try to address that in a better way, if he doesn't have a good enough counter to that, if he doesn't have a good enough way to move away from that and like talk about Kamala Harris's qualifications, okay, he's not going to be able to captivate. I mean, he's going to negatively polarize people against him, people that he's trying to actually win over to his side.
I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them...
By the way, every single thing that she's saying is true. You might be like, oh, well, she obviously has an agenda, but it's like, but it's true. He did do all of those things, okay? Like, her bias in this situation is completely irrelevant to the points that she's making, because the points that she's making are absolutely correct, okay?
A loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner, a first question.
Doesn't he call white journalists losers and call their questions as well? No, he definitely does do that. But when you're so consistently fucking saying that like a black woman is a rabid animal, like a black DA is a rabid animal over and over again, like it's a little bit racially motivated, right? Like context and nuance is important in these situations, right? You don't call a woman a bitch or a cocksucker. You call a woman a dick, right? When you call a woman a bitch, it's a little bit different. Okay, that's number one. Number two, like, I call myself an ape or a monkey regularly, right? But obviously, if you were to do that to a black person, everybody understands what you're doing. Contextually, something that might be appropriate in one situation is not going to be appropriate in another situation. One is unimaginably racist. The other one is just, jokes. That's the difference there in terms of like Donald Trump obviously having all the smoke for journalists across the board. Having said that, however, Donald Trump has been extra racially animated in terms of dealing with people of color.
You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and, and I say this.
Dude, I love the black population. Dude, also, like, 60-plus-year-old white men can never navigate this situation correctly in general. It's like losing ground regardless. It's like when people will come into my chat and be like, Hasan, you never have black women on as your guests, or you never have black people on as your guests. It's like, there is no effective counter to that. You just have to be like, dude, shut the fuck up and move on, right? Because what am I supposed to say to that? Turn around and be like, oh no, here are all the black people that I've had on my show? Like, that's a ridiculous fucking, you just immediately, you're like, you're being fucking weird and racist, okay? And it's true. Like, it is. And especially when you're like a 60-plus-year-old white dude, when you're like a 60-plus-year-old white dude, and Joe Biden was really bad on this too, you just always come across like you're saying, I got binders full of blacks in my cabinet, which is what Joe Biden basically said. If you recall on the BET interview that he conducted, he was basically like, I have so many blacks. I have so many blacks, which is, it's never a good look. Okay. It's just never a good look. It's like something that is not going to be easy to address. And, there's not really anything you could do. It's a, you're in a bind in that situation. But Trump, on the other hand, tries to be like, listen, I'm the president. You could just, the only way that if you're Trump to answer this question, the only way to do it is like, listen, I was the president. Okay. I was the president of all Americans. Okay. That includes black Americans as well. Here are some of the policy positions that I pushed for. You know what I mean? Instead of being like, no, I love all of the black people. I love all of the black people of America.
Historically, black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said you can't do it with...
Like, I also personally think that this is like a little whiny. This is something that he did a lot after 2020 when he lost the election, where like there's a difference between being butthurt about like liberal elites and then like using that real that real anger and resentment you have towards liberal elites, and then basically packaging that as like real anger and resentment that the white working class has towards liberal elites. He does a really good job with that, and he did a really good job with that in the 2016 election. He did a really good job with that in general. But when you constantly fucking whine about how you didn't actually lose the election, you come across like a whiny fucking loser. And he's doing that here. This isn't a good way to answer any of these questions. You just now look butthurt, okay? You look like you're complaining. You look like it's too narcissistic that even like those in the edges, maybe not like the diehard MAGA loyalists, like that one guy who's like clapping like a fucking seal in the audience, but like the average voter who's like maybe thinking about voting for Trump, maybe hasn't made up their minds even at this fucking point or whatever, like they're not going to look at this and go, oh yeah, no, that's my goat right there. It just, you look like a bitch, okay? You look like a little baby. You're like, you didn't even say hello to me. You didn't say hello to me at all. It's very fucked up. You lied to me. Kamala was supposed to be here, right? Like, it's just not great. Also, he did know Kamala Harris wasn't going to be there. Crazy Kamala disrespectfully refused to attend the National Association of Black Journalists Conference, but I'm on my way to meet with them now in Chicago, because of which they'll probably end up doing. She has no choice, but remember, it is only for that reason. He tried to hedge his bets and say, Kamala Harris will attend this because I'm attending it, if on the off chance that she does attend it. I mean, to be fair, Trump got cheated during the 2020 elections. What? They did cheat Trump during the elections? No, they didn't. What are you talking about? Oh, yes, hogs are back, baby. Hogs are back, baby. Oh, hell yeah. Hell yes, dude. I love you. Chatter, keep chirping, okay? Tell me everything you believe. I want to examine your beliefs really good, okay?
With Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late, just so we understand. I have too much respect.
Also, the reason why he was half an hour late is because apparently, according to HuffPost, deputy editor of HuffPost, Philip Lewis, I'm told that Trump is demanding that the National Association of Black Journalists do not live fact check, and that's why the event hasn't started. We're in a standoff. That was part of the reason why that he was late. But that's pretty awesome in general. Yeah, we're going to do the Kamala isn't black clip. Hold on. He's going to keep going.
They couldn't get their equipment working or something was
Mr. President,
wrong.
I would love
I think
if
it's
you
a
can answer
very
the question
nasty
on your rhetoric
question.
and why you
I have
believe
answered
that
the
black voters
question.
should trust you with another
I
4
have
years.
been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act?
And for you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work, in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace. Let me
just ask a follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions here. Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
Give me
a definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition of that.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a very direct question.
Define it for me if you.
It's like that's what it means. Like, it means diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's what it. She just defined it. I like that in my head canon, he's like, no, literally, I don't know what it means. Everyone keeps saying it. Like, I don't know what those were. In my head canon, I'm imagining Trump literally being like, I genuinely don't know what those words mean, and I'm kind of scared because everyone always talks about it. So please, can you help me out a little bit? Like, it would be so sick.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number.
Yo! Hey, yo! Bruh. Bruh. Like, blackness in the United States of America is literally historically associated with the one drop rule, okay? It's just defined by whether white supremacists consider you black or not, okay? You can't just like pull that ripcord. It's like saying Obama is white because he's half white. Absolutely zero people think that way, okay? Saying that to a room full of black journalists is insane. About a woman born in Oakland, too. Like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, that's not. It's also funny because simultaneously, the Republican Party is like, maybe Kamala Harris was not born in America, okay? Oh, Jesus Christ.
A number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe
I
that she
think
is
somebody should look into that, too, when you ask continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans
I really don't
have
know.
said?
I mean, I really don't know. Could be.
Also, like, what difference does it make? Even if she was obviously she's not an Indian woman, okay? If you're half black, you're black. That's just how it works, okay? In America, because, you know, that's just the way white supremacists see you. And that is how society treats you. That's number one. Number two, even if she was just like straight up an Indian woman, that's still calling her a DEI hire in that circumstance would still be the same shit, which is awesome. It just doesn't make any sense unless you mean DEI is just directly a substitute for the N-word. So it doesn't fit in his mind to Kamala Harris, who is Indian and not black, I guess. He's like, what do you mean? DEI, it just means the N-word. It doesn't make sense for Kamala, who's Indian. Is that what he's trying to say? I don't get it.
There are some, and there are plenty. I know this lady right over there, Harris, is a fantastic person who just interviewed me at length. And we had a great interview, I think, and I heard you got very good ratings on that interview.
You told me it was the longest one of your life, so we had a good discussion. Look, I want to talk about why you're here today. I mean, it is not lost on us how divided we are as a country. And as you were coming today, we really got to see that we were divided along the lines of race, along the lines of gender.
Yeah, Gloria Harris over here is just like desperately clinging on to any fucking parachute. She is Donald Trump's parachute in this situation. She is trying her very best. She's the Fox News anchor, by the way. And does she like him? Yes. She's a Fox News anchor. Or not Gloria Harris, Harris Faulkner. Is that her name? Is why I hate when people say you are white. I grew up around real racists and none of them would have considered you white. I mean, it doesn't matter. I think plenty of racists, if they didn't know my background, would most likely say I'm white. Harris Faulkner, my bad. So that's the reason. Like I have as a white passing individual, I have a shit ton of privilege, okay? Until they find out my name or my background or anything like that, you know, that's why I say I'm white.
And there is this question of, in this moment where we are, why come here? What is your message today?
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happened to be.
Okay, we watched the rest of this. And then he just like tries to tie back like anti-immigrant sentiment directly to anti-immigration sentiment directly to fucking black people being harmed by immigrants, which I mean, I think that sentiment is captivating for a lot of people because there's no counter narrative to it, which is why I always find it to be a very dangerous one that the Democrats do not actually have any sort of counter to, even though they should have had for years, right? But I guess luckily for the Democratic Party, the black jobs thing became a meme almost instantaneously coming from Donald Trump. And everybody started making jokes about it. But overall, this should really tank his numbers with black voters who for some reason can't see the light. I mean, one Fox host is grilling him and he can't focus on black people for 1 second. Yeah.
That is expected on the stage live as it happens. It will be published on NABJ's website and elsewhere. I do want to let you know there will also be a protest that is planned here. We're not sure how large, but there is going to be a protest outside of the hotel where Donald Trump will be speaking to journalists.
They pulled Trump off stage? That's
Project
what happened?
2025.
I think we have to leave it there by the Trump team.
All right.
So leave it. That is the last word. Thank you so much.
Oh, they pulled him. I thought it was weird because I thought, oh, there's one last question about Project 2025. And then he was like, no, we're leaving. I didn't realize that it was his team that pulled him. Oh, dude, that's really fucking.
Mr. Trump, for coming today and joining us.
Well, thank you for your job.
Oh, dude, that's not good. Again, that's another fucking misstep overall. I don't know what the fuck he was thinking, honestly. Like, there's no reason to attend this. You could have just straight up said, I'm not attending it because Kamala's not attending it. In his mind, he did great. I mean, this like plays well for all the fucking weird, sweaty, gross, racist losers where he's like, look at Trump owning black women in broad daylight on a public stage. My goat is back. My king is back. But this like doesn't look that great to moderates in general. I don't think it looks great to the black men that he was trying to win the votes of and win favor with, you know? No, it's to say he did it and he supports black people more than anyone. Yeah, no, I understand that, but I'm saying that like the reason why he wanted to do this is specifically because he thought that he could navigate through this conversation in a way where he kind of didn't look like a fucking asshole. Okay? The problem is there's no spin here. You know what I mean? Now it just looks like he's at odds. He's shifting from disenfranchised extremes to center, but he can't pivot. Yeah, I mean, he's stuck in the middle here. He's stuck in the middle of like his own, his background, what he's done so far in terms of his like commentary, in terms of like how he has presented himself. He's stuck in this place where he's like trying to moderate, but he's not having a good time doing so. But also the trying to moderate angle he was doing against Joe Biden. Maybe there's another instinct there now that he's going up against a black woman, right? Maybe the instinct there is, oh, I just hit like max racism here, thinking that will be good. It might play well to the base, but it's not going to play well to moderates. It's not going to play well to independents, because the biggest problem with the Republican Party, and I say this pretty much every single fucking day, I repeat it every single fucking day, is that they're so high off their own farts